it's great to be here, and I'm like my cousin Billy Johnson, the Jet. I'll keep my comments brief. And Senator Tarr is right. I always had to kind of put the choke collar on him when he served. I just want to say a few things and cover a couple of points. First of all, I want to thank City Marshal Matt Simons for having the color guard here today, and I want to acknowledge our senior patrolman, Michael Wolichowski, who's on the guard. And Michael's grandfather was Ed Molin, who was a great friend of my dad and Richie's dad and Lisa's dad, Kenny Cousins, and they were great friends down the South End. So I want to thank them for being here today, and thank our color guard. Also, I want to thank Sid Rasky for putting this together, because she heard a speech that I gave on Martin Luther King Day about 4 years ago, and she really, that really pushed her to make sure we did the acknowledgement of, number one, black soldiers and people of color in the city of Newburyport. So I really want to give Sid that acknowledgement that she deserves. I don't know where she is, but there she is right there. So thank you. And one of the things, my son's not here today. He's out in school and finishing up. He's got an important test he's doing. So he had something he was going to read. I'm going to read it to you. And this was done on November 10th of 2010 by Gardner William Cousins. He was in a grade 3 at the Immaculate Conception School at the time. He said, "My grandfather was a veteran. He was an amazing grandfather. He was fearless. Once his ship got blown up, he swam 2 miles to shore." I don't know if he really swam 2, but he put it in there. He had to be a very strong to swim 2 miles. He was the best grandfather I could ever have, and he had to be brave. So Gardner did that, and he was going to read that today, so I wanted to share that all with you. And what compelled him to do that was Boot Chenard was at the Immaculate Conception talking to the students. And as Charlie Cullen has said, the importance of World War II veterans to share their challenges and their struggle and their hope and their love for the country. And I think that's an amazing thing. My father had several decorations that he received, and he never spoke about them, never talked about them until later in life, until George Duffy wrote a book about the Merchant Marines. George Duffy had a wife who taught at Newburyport High School, Mrs. Duffy, a wonderful lady. And in that outcoming, he shared these things, and I read them after he had passed away. And he received an Atlantic War Zone Medal, Merchant Marine emblem, Honorable Service button, Presidential Testimonial letter, and a Victory Medal. He did get in the cold water that day and did have to swim ashore and helped a couple of guys save their lives, never talked about it, and spent, a kid from the south end of Newburyport, spent a little time in Russia until he was picked up to get back out to being a Merchant Marine. So he was a great veteran. He loved Newburyport. He loved the people in Newburyport. There's a couple of special people here today I want to make sure we acknowledge, who helped him later in life. Ann Reardon, school nurse from down in Newbury. Ann Reardon is here today. Sharon Scott is here. Sharon was his nurse, did a wonderful thing, and stopped by and see him all the time. And our good friend, our neighbor, where's Regina, who lives down on Water Street? She used to listen to Billie Holiday music with him and have a couple of how do you do's, or maybe an old granddad or something, but they had a lot of fun down the south end. And I just want to speak a little bit about my Uncle George. Uncle George never had any kids, died in 1967, had a great love for the city of Newburyport, loved all of the grandchildren and first cousins. His little thing would be to take us to Salisbury Beach once a year, spend time with us. It was my sister Ruby's godfather, and he was a great guy and loved the city of Newburyport. He also was a cleaner in the city of Boston. He loved being in Boston and Roxbury, and lived a good life. And the picture of him in the brochure was with his wife, Corrine, who died a young death of TB. But he was a great guy. And my other uncle, Uncle Billy and Anna Lane never had any kids. They loved Newburyport. They loved living in Amesbury also. They had a lot of friends over at the Amesbury Country Club where my other two uncles, Billy's father and my Uncle Howard, were members, Charlie's grandfather. And he loved being at the Sullivan Building. You know, when you think about, I was thinking about this, my friend Tim Sullivan was telling me that they were talking about how he would go over to the well in Amesbury at the golf club and bring over bottled spring water to all the ladies, Mrs. Sullivan, Mrs. Lawler, and all those wonderful ladies out to the Sullivan building. So he loved people, loved Newburyport, and loved being here. And our Uncle Kenneth, who was the oldest, just to mention him, as Richard did, he was kind of the quarterback of the group. All 8 of them grew up down the south end, and my grandmother raised all 8 of them through the Depression in the 20s as a single parent here in the city of Newburyport. And she was a real superstar in her own right. Worked up on High Street. All 4 of the children would walk her to work every day before they went to school to make sure she was there. So she was a wonderful lady. So with that, I think we just about covered everything, and I'm really happy my cousin Peter is here today because his uncle, my Uncle Chief, was the president of the city council up in the city of Haverhill and a great public servant. And the last thing I want to say, if I was president of the United States, my cousin would be the first black director of the FBI. And make no mistake about it, there's a little nepotism with that. And he was the assistant director of the FBI down in New York City. And the last thing I want to say, my little golf group is here. Peter Chetzis, Steve Himes, and my childhood friend Mickey Whitney. I don't know where Harrison is. He's probably cold sitting in a police cruiser with a Pete on high. But anyways, he's around. But a great group of guys, and really for Steve to come. You know, Steve's a gold star. Mother is his son perished, and I want to acknowledge him. I told Mary Ann Lawler, and I told Mary Ann Clancy, and my friend Jamie Gagnon. And in my life, that was the saddest day of my life. And giving the ultimate sacrifice of your life for your country is what this is all about. We have a great country, and it's a wonderful place, and I really am really happy to be here, and I'm very grateful for all of you being here today. So thank you very much.